Thanks for joining us for Lyndall Brakes Tech Talks. Today we're going to talk about the basic rebuild procedure for a Brembo radial mount monobloc caliper. The monoblocks are a little tougher to rebuild because they're all one piece. You can't split the caliper body. So here's one that we've done. These are ubiquitous in all forms of racing. You see them on many performance street bikes. We have these in inventory if you like. This is one that we have serviced and rebuilt. We have taken off the bike. We've removed the old pads. We've replaced all the old seals. We reuse the pistons because we deem them fit to be reused. You can see the clean, freshly rebuilt caliper body with the new Lyndall centered race pads. This is our biggest stopping power, and this is an incredible combination for all types of racing. So the Lyndall pads, Brembo radial mount master monobloc. This is the titanium finish. It's a really nice look. I like it. So here's one that we have removed from the bike, and we're getting ready to get the pistons out so we can replace the O-rings, okay, or the quad rings in this case. I'm going to use a little compressed air, and I'm going to stick some cardboard up in here just so that the pistons don't collide into one another. 80 to 100 pounds of air pressure, and you can see inside the caliper body here. I'm going to just push the piston out. One piston has come out. This is typical. So now you're stuck with, how do I get these other pistons out? For that, we have a kit that you can also buy direct from us. This isn't online yet. Very simple. It just consists of the rubber plugs. You put them in like that. Take one of our clamps. Just clamp that together on the body. Doesn't have to be too tight. I'm going to take the cardboard now, tear it in two, and put it on both sides. Again, to protect the piston from getting scratched up. We don't want that. Here goes the compressed air. We need to go to 2 clamps. Keep that seated. Okay, here we go with the compressed air. So, see the pistons have come out, clamps. And at this point you can work them back and forth with your fingers, and you can kind of walk them out of the bore. They're past the O-ring. You can slide them past. This one's a little more stubborn. This one's cocked in the bore. So in that case, continue to push it out of the bore with air. Only this time we're going to put clamps on both sides. Another rubber plug going in. Clamp on this one. And clamp on this one. I've got this loose and it'll come out. I'm going to gently use these spoons, and I'm not using any, I'm not prying on anything. I'm just putting these spoons in here like so, and I'm going to evenly distribute a firm, gentle pressure, pushing the piston back on the bore. We almost have enough room to clear. Okay, so again, spoons on here, spoons on here. We're down to our last piston to remove, and for this we're going to put in a third plug. I'm going to reuse one of the old brake pads here, and I'm going to set it in here like so. So I've trapped both plugs in there, and now I'm going to trap this one. I'm going to use 2 brake pads. I'm just going to lay one in there like that. I'm going to go back to my cardboard and stick down in here so this piston doesn't crash into this brake pad. Okay, so here we've got quite an operation going here. I'm going to apply the compressed air again into the inlet. The air will come into the cylinder and push the piston out like so. We can remove our clamps now, and now we can gently, with our fingers, walk this piston out of the bore. And there you have it. 4 pistons are removed. Pull out your rubber plugs if you want this time. look at that. That's a bonus. Dust seal came out with the O-ring. So we'll get into that in just a second. We've removed the 4 pistons to make sure they're in good condition. And then we'll come back and we'll clean the caliper body with brake fluid, and we will remove the quad rings, the dust seal, and we will examine all of those surfaces. We're going to take some brake clean and clean this caliper body. We have cleaned our caliper body and we're ready to remove the dust seal and the O-ring, the quad ring rather. We're going to use a rounded edge spoon. I like this one because it's angled, as you can see, and it fits nicely inside the bore, and you can just run it along the groove edge and turn that like a key. And most times, show you. Now that's the dust seal. That's on the most outermost groove, outermost area. Now we're going to go for the quad ring. This is what actually seals the fluid from behind the piston. Going to come out like so. And there you can see it's a quad ring. It's not round. It's got 2 hard edges. It's got two hard sealing edges, a leading and a trailing. We've removed our dust seal and our quad ring, and we're going to continue this on every cylinder. Okay, so now we have all of our dust seals ready to clean and inspect the bores. So I'm going to use a very soft wire brush, and I'm just going to run it around the bores real quick. Give those groove surfaces a little scrub. Doesn't take much. I'm going to give it a little brake clean, a little shake. I can see this is a relatively new caliper and it's in very good condition. So the grooves are all clean and free of debris, and we are ready to install our Brembo quad rings and dust seals. So we have this kit, the basic O-ring kit, and then here is the master kit, I will call it. It's a little more involved. All new pistons, all new quad rings, and all new dust seals. Our pistons are in very good condition. Again, this is a relatively new caliper, and you would think, you know, oh my gosh, I got a Brembo radial mount. It's got less than 1 season on it, but this caliper actually had 2 stuck pistons, and that's why we're doing this caliper rebuild. This caliper was definitely in need of service, although it only had maybe 1 season and change. So this is something you should be doing. If you're racing your bike, you should be doing this once or twice annually, at least the quad rings and dust seals. With that said, we're going to get into the quad rings. Here are the 4 new quad rings. Keep those over here on my right side. And we have the 4 new dust seals. We also have some assembly lube from Brembo, and this comes in real handy. Wouldn't recommend rebuilding the caliper without this. And it's real simple. You just get a little on your finger, get a little everywhere if you want, but start with your finger and see how that goes. Put it on the ring like so. Just get the ring nice and coated. You can run your finger in the bore, one last check. Smear some of that around. And I'm starting with this innermost quad ring, the one that seals against the piston. And I'm just going to seat this dude in here. I'm going to use a little bit of braille because it's hard to see with your fingers in there. And I'm going to get this seated in the groove, and then I'm going to work this around the groove. And again, I'm doing most of this by feel, but you'll feel it snap in and you'll hear it. You may have heard that snap in there, and now the O-ring is in. I'm going to do all of the quad rings, all of the sealing rings first. So I'm going to work my way around the caliper body just again. Okay, so we've replaced all the quad rings in this caliper, and you can see them in the bore there. Roll that around for you. And now we're going to move on to the thinner outermost ring, and this is the dust seal. So this keeps debris away from your sealing contact area of your quad ring and your piston. And you can see this outer ring right here, this outer groove is where this dude's going to go. So again, it's hard to see with my fingers in the way, but I'm just going to find where this groove is and start feeding the O-ring in there. Okay, so now I have the quad ring and the dust seal correctly installed, and then we're going to move into installing the pistons. I'll work my way around the cylinder here. You'll definitely feel it pop into the ring groove, because again, the ring groove is square, and so is the quad ring and the dust seal. So it's a nice tidy fit. Okay, so there we have it. All of our rings, all of our quad rings and our dust seals have been installed. Ready to install our clean, inspected pistons. Again, I'm going to come back to the Brembo assembly lube. Gently drop the piston into the bore and let it find its square edge, and then real gently, like it's up against the dust seal, and there it just went in. So super easy, no pressure. See, I did not have to force this in. You do not want to get the piston crooked in the bore, which is possible, and because you'll end up scratching the sealing surface of your piston. Again, we're just putting a nice film. I still have enough on my fingers to get this job done, and I can put this into the bore. I'm just going to work it in there, and I'm going to let it just lay in there. Just going to let it kind of gently rotate it around, and you'll feel it. I'm going to just walk this down in here, and again there, see how easy that pushed into the bore? Gently pushed in with my fingertips. So we've got 2 of the 4 pistons installed, and I'm going to continue to work my way around. I still have enough of this on my hands. You really don't need a whole bunch. Just a little bit will do. And again, I'm just going to lay this in here. I'm going to let it find its happy place. Can kind of rotate it, rock it back and forth. You'll feel it get down to the bore, and then we've got the 4th and final piston in here, and we're just going to push that in. Real easy. Once these go in, it's a real easy fit. You can now plug the fluid inlet side, and you can give it one last spray down with brake fluid, just an aerosol brake cleaner, any kind will do. Now this is ready to install a fresh new set of Lyndall high performance centered race pads, and we'll put this on the bike. Okay, so we're going to install our Lyndall centered race pads. These are the high performance centered race pads from Lyndall. This is a centered kit pad. This is a HH friction level all day long, suitable for any road racing conditions, high performance street. And we're going to install these into the calipers. It's real easy, just work these up. They'll drop right in. Take the other one, make sure that you have friction side against friction side, and these will just go in here like so. And now we have the caliper freshly rebuilt. We have new Lyndall centered race pads installed, and we're getting ready to hang this back on the caliper perch. But before we do, I want to talk to you a minute about brake fluid, because obviously we're going to have to flush and bleed the brake system now that we've disconnected the calipers. And even if you haven't rebuilt your calipers, it's always good to regularly flush and replace your brake fluid. Now, we recommend 660 Motul for the racetrack. So this has the highest dry boiling temp and the lowest wet boiling temp. So what's the difference between wet boiling temp and dry boiling temp, you might ask? Dry boiling temp, the highest boiling temp that you'll see in a brake fluid, is in an unopened container. So we're going to break the seal on this. The seal has not been broken, so you can very well go by the dry boiling temp reference on the brake fluid if you haven't opened it. If you have opened it, you have to go by the wet boiling temperature. A brake fluid such as this with a very high dry boiling temp is very hygroscopic, and this means it absorbs moisture right out of the atmosphere. The moisture that this brake fluid absorbs out of the atmosphere is not a problem from ambient up to 250 or 300 degrees. But at temperature, the moisture that has accumulated in the brake fluid it'll boil off and turn to a gas, and gas is compressible. This is when your lever will come to the bar and you will not have brakes if your brake fluid is flashing. So brake fluid is something that's often overlooked and critically important. So the condition of your brake fluid, if you consider, you know, some of the riding conditions where you're going up a mountain pass and you're 5,000 foot elevation, 6% grade with switchbacks, well, the boiling temperature lowers the higher the altitude gets. So if you're coming down the switchbacks from the top of the mountain, this is obviously a place where you need brakes. You don't want your brake fluid to fail you at this point, or on the track, or anywhere else for that matter. But it's often overlooked, and it's seldom replaced within the recommended time limits. And we recommend, if you're racing your bike, every track session, you should be breaking the seal on a brand new canister of brake fluid and flushing all of your fluids. We do that. We put new pads and rotors often on the top race bikes. So, okay, so now we've performed a rebuild of the caliper. We've installed the new quad rings and dust seals, cleaned and inspected the pistons, reinstalled those. We've installed the Lyndall centered race pads, and we're ready to hang this back on the caliper perch and bleed the system. This works for any caliper. I mean, it's kind of a universal system. You can rebuild your stock factory calipers or the caliper off your car in the same manner. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.